Hello and welcome to PalaceFanTV for our end of month review for October here at the Victory Club in Norwood. I'm Daly and I've got with me Jay Crame from the Eagle's Beak and Terence Ford from redandbluearmy.com. How you doing, lads?
Good, thank you.
Guys. Good. We're going to review Palace's matches in October. Now, in the previous video for September, we did creep into the first match for October, which was West Brom, where Palace won 2-0. So we won't be talking too much about that. It's a shame, because that's the only victory Palace had in October. The game after that was West Ham at home, 3-1 defeat. A fair result, or was it one that hinged on one particular decision, Terry?
I think we all know that it hinged on that one decision. It was a really big shame. Up until that point, what was it, 42nd minute he went off, 44th, something like that. I was really enjoying the game. It was end to end, both teams were in it, both teams are trying to play attacking football. It was really great to watch. It was a great tactical battle, but not one of those ones where people sit and it's all cagey. It was, everyone was going for it. And one decision, 2 tackles, and he's off.
A fair record?
I think they're both fouls, obviously. I think the first one is definitely a yellow card. I think the second one, I don't think it's a yellow card if you're on a yellow card and you've committed no more fouls. I think it's a bit, I mean, don't get me wrong, Dwight Gale's given him the opportunity to give him the yellow card, but based on Clattenburg's 2 performances after, where he let Yaya Toure get off with one, and then he let Lucas of Liverpool get off with a blatant sending off, based on the grounds that he doesn't want to send them off for just 2 fouls. So,
I mean, potentially that's because they don't play for Crystal Palace, and Dwight Gale does play for Crystal Palace. But
don't play for London clubs, apparently. People on Twitter are saying.
Really,
it's a thing against London clubs.
But Gale in the game against West Ham, it was weird, wasn't it? He seemed to almost have his head not quite screwed on properly. It was a bit of a bizarre performance from him, wasn't it? Up until the red card.
It was very much so. Terry was right, it was a great first half. It was really just so disappointing that Gale gave Clattenburg the opportunity to send them off. It was harsh, a second yellow. On balance, probably they're bookable offences, both of them, but it's inconsistency again. And the same referee, as already mentioned, has not done the same thing in other games. So, you can understand if other referees are doing slightly different, but it's just frustrating because you want it to happen across the board or not at all. So, it's happened quite often this season already. You can point to several occasions. And it's not just Palace. I'm not just moaning as a Palace fan here, but I think Gale was silly enough to give Clattenburg the opportunity to send them off. He did exactly that, and that changed the game.
Do you reckon when he ran over to give that second yellow card, he would have beat Usain Bolt in a race? He's sprinting over there like he had a firework up his...
We will believe that. There was a second half when it made it very one-way traffic. It still took a late goal, didn't it? Palace held out for most of the half those areas, didn't they?
Yeah, I thought it was, like I say, it ruined the game because we was always going to come out and sit behind the ball and try to hold on to what we had. And we did for a long time. We didn't... I loved it that... the West Ham fans were singing at 2-1, "Are you washing Allardyce?" when they'd resorted to punting the ball to the back post where Andy Carroll headed it back across goal. So there was the irony didn't escape me there. But we did well to hold out, but that's not that surprising. I think Pardew refers to it all the time. We've still got that sort of defensive unit from when we had Tony Pulis in, so we can do that if we have to.
Yeah, which is fair enough. The next game was away at Leicester. Don't want to have a whole video talking about referees, but we lost 1-0, but the talking points really were at least 2, arguably 3 penalty decisions for Palace turned down. What were your thoughts on the penalty decisions, Jay?
Yeah, I think arguably we could have had 2 of them. The handball for sure was the main one, which bemused how that wasn't given. It was just clear handball for me. The foul on Wilf, Wilf's exaggerated the fall, but he was tripped. There's no doubt about that. The same defender who committed the handball left his leg out and Wilf went over. I think I've said it in watching other games before that when other teams have players that dive or exaggerate a dive, then you can see why the referee doesn't give it, and it's kind of similar in that scenario. But then if it's been tripped, then it should be a penalty. But I think we're unlucky.
Do you think we deserved a point out of that, Terry? Because really, when Leicester scored, first half had sort of been not all Leicester, they've been on top, but Palace had actually started to come back into it by the time that Vardy scored.
Yeah, I think a 0-0 was probably the right result. Vardy's earned that mistake out of Hangeland. He harried him for the entire game, and he got a mistake out of him early in the first half as well. So I think Hangeland knew that he was struggling to take a touch on a difficult bouncing ball, so that's why he's made that error. Other than that, I can't really see them scoring. I know they hit the post in the first half, but that was such a bizarre shot, and I'm not sure what Hennessy was doing, although, again, ironically, if Hennessy does dive there for the ball, he doesn't get up in time, and Mahrez has got an empty net to tap into. But where he doesn't dive, he's on his feet to stand big. Do the penalty situations happen if they don't score? Because we probably don't come out as much at them as we did, so who knows. But I think 0-0 was probably the right result.
Do you think, I mean, it was the conditions were difficult, it was very wet, and that might have led to Hangeland's mistake, but do you think if Wilf had started possibly on those conditions against those defenders, we might have got more luck?
Possibly. He's a very tricky player to play against, as a lot of fullbacks will, contest. Ask Darmian after the weekend.
We'll come to that.
Yeah. But for me, Hangeland seems to struggle when he's not playing against a big striker. If it's a quick striker playing along the floor. But I think Mahrez was brilliant in what he did. First time ball straight to Vardy. Got to give him a lot of credit for that, because we could have recovered if it hadn't have been first time ball straight through to Vardy. But yeah, a mistake's a mistake, and Hangeland paid for that, or we pay for that.
We're going to let Breda off. I mean, he was so good in the previous games up to that, wasn't he?
Well, I say it's very hard to. You can blame him because he's made an error, especially considering when you look at it in slow motion, he had a few options on. But to look at that incident in isolation doesn't capture the picture of what Vardy did to him for the rest of the game. And Vardy's not just been doing that to us, he's been doing it to everyone. He's scored in 8 games in a row now at the time of recording. Only 2 off of the all-time Premier League record, which Van Nistelrooy holds, I think, at 10. So the guy is just on it at the moment. And, if it's a striker, if it's Fraser Campbell running through on goal there, you capitalise on that mistake, the chip probably goes straight into the goalkeeper's chest and bounces away. It's just when your luck's in, your luck's in.
Okay, another defeat coming up in the Cup, away at Man City. There was a few injuries going into this one, and absentees. James McArthur was absent because his wife gave birth. Jason Puncham was not very well. Should we just gloss over this one? I mean, was it a one-off? Does it really matter? We talked about the League Cup, didn't we? Potentially being a thing. Now it's not, Jay.
Do we care about League Cup?
Maybe not. Maybe it was FA Cup all the way.
I think we all wanted to win it, but I think we all knew when we got Man City away it was going to be a really tough ask.
Definitely.
I think we competed for an hour. We created quite a few chances. Again, our luck's not in at the moment. We're not putting those chances away. If Ledley scores, if Bamford scores, and we make it 2-2, a few young players in the Man City team might get a bit worried about the pressure that puts on. Last half an hour, they just run us over really, and I think I'm not sure. I think as soon as we saw that it was Man City, and you look at our midfield, because James McArthur obviously having the baby, congratulations James. Johan Cabaye injured, looks fine to me on Saturday, and Jason Puncheon sick. On the same day, the foundation Twitter account was putting out pictures of him out in the cold with children doing training sessions with them. So was he really sick?
Well, maybe that's how he got ill.
I think Pardew,
He's got an allergy.
I think Pardew just decided to let it go. I don't think he'd say that in public, but I think he decided to let it go.
That's fair enough. That's your opinion. But with a few absentees there, certainly in midfield, was it the fact that it was quite a strong Man City team, which it was, or is it a slight worry that a couple of injuries in certain areas and we do suddenly become a bit exposed? Jeff?
I think we've seen that so far. We've struggled with injuries this season, and we haven't the last 2 years been back in the Premier League. We've been quite lucky with injuries so far, but now we're seeming, well, other than Shamak, who seems to be out injured quite a lot. But in a striker, in the striker position is one that we're really struggling with. But a few injuries elsewhere, like both our first choice fullbacks have been out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many other teams in the Premier League that could slot in top class fullbacks in those positions to cover them. Just for me, I think we've been a bit unlucky. For the Man City game, I think the big thing in that game was the second goal for City right before half time. that just killed the game completely. If it had gone in 1-0, and Ledley missed the goal, shot on goal and things like that. I think that second goal was, second half was a non-event completely. So, but injuries have hit us hard, but it shouldn't really be an excuse for the squad of players that we have, really.
I don't even be worried about the depth if we use the players. Joe Ledley and Mile Jednak are hardly bad players. They were our starting midfield from last season, and if they're utilising the fashion that they are more suited to, i.e. defensive midfielders, I've got no problem with that. But what Pardew did was brought them in and told them to go and play like MacArthur and Kabaya, and they got exposed, unsurprisingly, and because their ball retention just isn't on the levels of those guys. So no, if you're going to bring those two in, play them as defensive midfielders and alter the style a little bit. So I was a little bit disappointed that Pardew just went and said, go and do what we normally do.
With the fullbacks, are we happy with how Mariappa and Kelly have done when they've come in? Because it's not always easy, is it, being debutising and filling in, but they've done all right?
Yeah, I think so. I think what we can expect from those players. Kelly's had a decent run in the side, with Ward being out for a while, and obviously Suarez being out and Ward coming back at the weekend. I think he's done okay, but our first choices are our first choices for a reason, and we've missed them.
Yeah. A positive result, the next one. Home to Man United, 0-0 draw. Before this video, I was thinking, right, October, in the league, 2 wins, 2 defeats, and I realised it wasn't 2 wins, it's 1 win, because it felt on Saturday like a victory, didn't it, Terry?
Yeah, you say positive, I was kind of disappointed. I felt like it was 2 points dropped based on the game. Obviously before it, I would have taken 0-0. The way we've been going at the moment, Man United, for all their faults, are still second in the league. So Van Gaal's clearly got them performing, and he's basing it on a different philosophy to how they've normally played in the past. So I thought there would be a good chance that the game would finish 0-0. The last 15 minutes, we did to Manchester United what they used to do to teams under Alex Ferguson. We put them fully under the cosh, and how the goal didn't come, I think in 3 weeks' time we win that game, because our luck would have hopefully turned by then, and we find one of those chances behind the net. Damien Delaney's header loops up over the crossbar. Scott Dan's header just misses Delaney at the back post. De Gea just gets a foot onto Gal. That Ashley Young's tackle just before that is brilliant. These are all things that on another day could have fallen our way, and we could have easily won that game 2 or 3-0.
The performance though from Palace, Jay, was great, wasn't it? Especially given 2 defeats isn't a terrible run of defeats, but the performance of Palace was improved in every area.
I think it's a great reaction from the team and the players. Really responded to the last few games, particularly a City result, which not every player that played on Saturday was involved in that game. Obviously, it affects the whole squad and the whole team. Performance at Leicester as well. It's a real good reaction, and we came back with a bang, to be honest. And I was like Terry, I felt disappointed going away from the game. We actually lost. Sorry, not lost. We drew. I just felt it felt like a loss really, because we played so well. We just couldn't score, and that just seems to be our big problem.
Dwight Gale, who we talked about at the start, it was like the opposite performance to West Ham, wasn't it? He was doing everything that he wasn't doing in the West Ham game.
Yeah, and I do wonder if it's at the West Ham game because it was his birthday. He was a little bit extra, had that extra yard in him to catch the players. I thought he competed brilliantly with Blind and Smalling. At times there's individual pictures of him beating Blind, Smalling and Fellaini in the air, which is no mean feat for someone who's only 5'9", is he? And a lot of people said after the West Ham game that would be his last game in a Palace shirt. For him to come back and put in a performance like that and prove all those people wrong, and also show that somewhere in him, that lead role, lone playing up front, is there in him somewhere. He's got to develop it more, but obviously they would have been working on it with him over months now, since previous regimes as well. So hopefully he's starting to learn the wily ways of playing as a lone.
Because that is the question, isn't it? Because of the system we play, that man up top has to do a certain role. But do we think we saw on Saturday hints that actually Gale maybe he could be that man?
That was his best showing as a lone striker for us, I think, and it showed or proved to the fans and everybody else that he learnt from his sending off against West Ham, in that he was closing players down but not diving in. He was getting round them, goal side, protecting the ball and doing all the things that you would expect a striker to do, but not do that silly things that he did against West Ham.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Well, let's talk about a few other issues around the club. Loanees in particular, we talked about in the last video. One of the loanees, Suli Kaikai, has been well, actually scoring more goals than Palace scored in October himself, hasn't he, Terry? And I think he won Player of the Month.
Yeah, PFA League One Player of the Month, which was a voting-based system, and nobody had heard of the other two players. And the official Crystal Palace Twitter account put out the link. So did Yannick Bolasie, so did Dwight Gale. He probably deserved it anyway, based on the performances I've read up around the other couple of players. 4 goals, a few of them winning goals. It's an impressive turnout, and Alan Pardew has said that out of all the players in the youth team, he's the one who's most likely to threaten the first team within the next year. But he's also said that, you know, plying your trade at that level, you've got to build up that experience, you know, and we've got a lot of players in our squad that have done that have played in a lot of the Football League, so it's good for Sally Kai to earn his stripes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about the striker role up top. We've got Suli Kaikai scoring goals and doing very well. Well done to him for winning that. Keshi Jansen scoring goals for Doncaster. So there's a few strikers that could potentially maybe one day do that role, obviously not this season. Other loanees, Jack Hunt apparently, didn't know he's still at Crystal Palace, is on loan at Sheffield Wednesday, and Jay, apparently he was brilliant against Arsenal, was it in the Cup? Or?
Yeah, and he was in the Championship team of the week at the weekend as well. So it's good to see his name around. Whether we're going to see him back at Palace, I'm not sure, but still associated with the club. So
yeah, a lot of Sheffield Wednesday fans saying he's their best right back since Roland Nilsson, so that's high praise.
Wow, that is high praise indeed. Just a shame that we've got so many good fullbacks at the moment at Palace. And another Palace team who are doing very well, much better than the first team right now, is Palace Ladies, who we caught up with you on the last video about them. Yeah. They were top of the league then. Are they still top of the league?
Still top of the league, unbeaten, only drawn 1 game. And doing really well. They beat Luton at the weekend. Luton were relegated from the higher division last season. Also have Gillingham in their division as well, who came down. But I think they're currently 4 or 5 points ahead of second place. So fantastic stuff at the moment.
And that could mean promotion at the end of the season?
Yes, yeah. Top team gets promoted.
Fantastic.
And they're finally fully kitted out.
They are fully kitted out.
Crystal Palace red and blue. Yes.
Yeah.
Good, fantastic. Well, best of luck to them. Hopefully they can keep that up, because that's brilliant. So end of part 1 for this video for our review. You guys know that I love a quiz, so I've done a short quiz for you here. I can't remember what the scores were for the last video or who's winning overall. This quiz is about Dwight Gale. He's been our main talking point, I think, for this month. So here you are, 3 questions on Dwight Gale. Number 1, in the 2010-2011 season, he went down to non-league and played for Stansted. But how many goals did he score in that season? Was it 37, 47 or 57? It was a lot.
It was a lot. 47.
37.
It was 57 goals.
Wow.
In a season?
In one season. What a return. So no points for either of you there. Question number 2. Which Premier League academy did Dwight begin his career at? Was it Tottenham, Arsenal or Chelsea?
I know the answer to this.
I don't. It'd be a guess. I'm going to say Tottenham.
Arsenal.
It was Arsenal. Well done. Correct. So 1 left for you to get level. If you guys know this one, I'll be incredibly impressed. Dwight shares a middle name with one of his former Peterborough teammates. As in, one of the teammates' first or second names is the same as Dwight's middle name. But who is it? Was it George Boyd, Lee Tomlin or Tyrone Barnett? As you can tell, there wasn't a lot of information on Dwight on Wikipedia for this quiz.
It's funny, Lee Tomlin sprung to mind, but I don't think it's Lee Tomlin. I don't know the answer. The Tyrone.
Tyrone, what are you going to go for?
I was going to go with that, but I need a point, so I'm going to go George Boyd.
The answer is George Boyd.
Oh.
He's Dwight Devon Boyd Gale. There you go. Great name. Good, chaps. Thank you very much for joining me. Thanks for watching. Don't forget you can subscribe for these monthly review videos and lots more. Comment below with your thoughts on the month of Palace. What was good, what was bad. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Snapchat. And we'll see you again soon. Cheers.